I'm back in the man cave, folks. I've had some electrical issues, if the truth be known. I'm not going to talk to you about electrics, by the way. Some people would be shocked if they knew about my electrics. I'm not going to talk about that, though. I am going to talk about formations and things like that. But just so as you know, because I had a few questions. I've been out of the man cave because winter set in. The garden was a bit boggy. I had some electrical issues, more network internet issues. Maybe I'll show you. Let me just show you. See the other, that's what I said. It's a bit messy because I'm still trying to sort all these cables out, but my network and bits there. There you go. That's where I was going to say that's where the magic happens. It's not particularly magical. Let's be fair, is it? Oh, you can probably see that as well. You know what that is, don't you? You don't know what that is? Shame. Shame. Maybe you're just too young. I'm going to try and get that mounted. Not in that sense, if you know what I mean. That would be disgusting, wouldn't it? But I'm going to try and get something sorted with it, get it made, and you know, get it done in here, get something going on in here. Anyway, you didn't tune in for all that, but I know a couple of you are interested, so there you go. Right, formation. The formation thing has been bugging me just a little bit, really. If you watched Tom's video yesterday, he very much alluded to the fact that we played the 4 against Bournemouth. We were pressing, we were doing our stuff. He switched it to 3 at the back, obviously for the Gillingham game, and then for the Sheffield United game, and there didn't seem to be quite as much pressing. Now, I think he hit on something there, but it's not the pressing itself that's concerning me and that's got me thinking, really. It's how the personnel fit into the system. And for a long time, I've thought that 3 at the back may well be our best system, our chosen system, the system maybe that best suited the players. But I'm not so sure anymore. So first of all, what we had was a situation where Issa Diop was left out of the starting lineup. Now, I bet Issa Diop probably feels bad enough if he's left out the starting lineup when we need 2 centre-backs. The fact that Balbuena and the fact that Ogbonna might be placed in front of him is probably not a great thing. But I bet he would probably consider that were we to play 3 centre-backs, he's in the team. It's a shoo-in, right? No problem at all. So for him to find a left-back in Aaron Cresswell played in the team before him, I'd imagine he finds that quite odd. I'd also suggest that it feeds into some underlying story, particularly with considerations that he is being courted by other clubs. It might be an indicator that he is off. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But it's not just that position. The very fact that Aaron Cresswell is having to be deployed there, again, just immediately suggests that we don't have the personnel for the job. Or even the personnel for what Moyes considers to be the job. Gio pointed out in the review afterwards that very much in the second half, McBurney was being deployed and he was pulling wide onto Cresswell so he could win the ball in the air. That's because he's a little fella. He's a fullback. He's not a centre-back. That will continue to be what happens. Then I started looking at it a bit more, of course. I thought there were a lot more gaps between the midfield and between the forwards with that formation as well. I thought Haller was a lot more isolated. Yes, it was an away game. Granted, I think we will see. You'd see that anyway, regardless of who was in charge. But there was a bigger gap there. So we didn't have as much attacking thrust. And in fact, I didn't actually particularly pay much attention. We didn't have a shot on target in the first half. So anyway, started looking at it. We had a very, very depleted bench as well. You all know that. And then when I looked at the bench and I started reading through comments on here, forum, I don't know, just everywhere where we can see any comments these days, somebody mentioned about bringing Diangana back. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, hold on, Diangana has no place in this formation. The formation that we played against Gillingham and Sheffield United, Diangana does not feature in that. There's not a role for him. Left wing back? No. Right wing back? No. Inside? Lanzini's position that he played? No. No, not a chance. He wouldn't play there. But so it leads you to thinking, hold on, about wide players. Well, we hear Yarmolenko's not fit. In fact, I believe Yarmolenko's not fit because I do think even if David Moyes didn't fancy him, Yarmolenko would find himself on the bench in the previous game against Sheffield United. You then look at Nathan Holland being loaned out. No, I think Moyes likes Nathan Holland. But a lot of that theory was was predicated upon two things. Number one, that he knew him from his days at Everton. And number two, the way Everton used to play with wide players. All right, they used to tuck in a little bit, a Leon Osman or a Pienaar, pick your player. He liked a wide player, but the more I looked at it, and in particular, if you've seen those David Moyes videos doing the rounds, the coaching videos, the masterclass videos, there's two very separate ones. One where he's talking about pressing. So there's the pressing coaching seminar. And then there is him explaining his tactics and the evolution of Everton under his 10 years in charge. And the more you looked at it, the more you realise actually the width came from the fullbacks. Now, he's not playing the same system now. That was very much four at the back. We've not got four at the back now. He looks like he's going to play three at the back. The width is coming from the wing backs. The others are tucked in. So then you look at it and you think, well, hold on a second. You've heard what I've said about Diangana. You've heard what I said about Holland. I think the centre-backs, as you know, that's not sorted. To play that system, we would need an additional centre-backs. We need Diop to be in there and then another centre-back on the bench, because I don't think Cardoso's going to... I'd say he's going to cut it. He might turn out to be a fine player, but I don't think you want somebody who's played no Premier League games on the bench for Premier League games. Once in a while, fine. But as a long-term strategy, I don't think so. So you start looking at other players, of course. And it brings me to Michail Antonio. Michail Antonio, all right, again, he's not fit probably for the Everton game. We think he's fit after that. Where does he fit in this system? Do I think David Moyes will play him up front? Possibly not. Possibly he will. I think he'll probably stick with Sebastian Haller. Do I think David Moyes will deploy him at right wing back? He could. Is that his best position? No, I don't think it is. For me, he's a wide forward. Not quite technical or prolific enough to play centrally all the time, but a wide forward. A very, an inside right, would have been called. A very advanced right winger. So whilst he can play as striker, whilst he can play as right wing back, it's still a square peg in a round hole to one extent or another. So it don't look great. And then I look at what happens with Zabaleta. Just Fredericks being injured, that on its own would surely, I would have thought, been enough to switch the formation. Whether he wants to go with 3-5-2 long term or not, I would have thought that for him to think, for this game, I can't do it. I can't have him at wing back. I'm going to have to go with the traditional 4. He's going to have to be right back. Even then, I don't particularly fancy it. But he didn't. He still went with a wing back. And well, Zabaleta is not suited to be in a wing back. Which leads us on to the transfer window, because when you look at Ryan Fredericks, I'll be interested to see whether Ryan Fredericks is better suited to being a wing-back. I think his pace is good. His pace is... He's one of the fastest players in the league. If you were to turn around to me and you were to say to me, Ryan Fredericks, the 4th fastest player in the league, I wouldn't argue with you. I'd say, okay, is he really? I can accept that. That sounds like it makes sense. But does he have the technical ability for the final pass, the final cross, or whatever is needed in that? I don't think he does. I think Masuaku does. It's just Masuaku's decision-making seemed to be off in the last game. But I think he's certainly got more... He can control the football better, far better. And that's obviously quite a fundamental skill, particularly if you're going to be the only wide player on that side. So then you start looking at it and think, well, maybe Fredericks ain't the answer. Zabaleta's certainly not. He's going to have to buy a wing-back. Now, of course, again, the conversation has very much been online. We're going to need a midfielder, we're going to need a right-back, we're going to need a goalkeeper, we possibly need a striker. Right? That's the conversation that's been happening. But actually, that may well need to be revised, the whole lot. Because actually what we need is a wing-back. If that's the case, what we're going to have to do is we are going to have to heavily stack all our purchases to suit the formation he wants to play, which is 3 at the back. Which is probably going to mean, if Diop goes, 2 new centre-backs coming in. Going to need probably a right-back coming in, certainly a midfielder. In fact, looking at it, there ain't too many players that are totally comfortable within that system. And when I say that, I mean maybe half the team, 6 of the 10 outfield players are comfortable in that system. Well, that's a hell of a lot of an overhaul. It's a hell of a lot of an overhaul to try and do in January when people do not want to sell their best players. Which leads me to wonder, should we be playing 3-5-2 at all at the moment?